Well, my friends, look at what we have today. The Pinarello F. This is the F7 equivalent. So we've got Shimano or Tegra on here. And well, the wheels are a bit meh. They're the Fulcrum Airbeach 400. They're kind of like 1600 grams. They're not the lightest in the world, but I'm gonna do my absolute best to try and read through the wheels into the frame for this video. One thing annoyingly I did have to do is I had to swap the tires and inner tubes out. They came with, well, 2 terrible tires on there, and I've got some TPU tubes in there because the previous ones felt wooden. I've actually hired this bike, so I can say whatever the hell I like about it. Wasn't sure if I was going to say this or not, but it has the charm. Before we get started, if you haven't watched one of my bike review videos before, effectively I have 10 categories and I'm going to do my best to try and describe what the bike feels like in each of those categories. So my goal is to try and get you to understand what it's actually like to ride this bike. Oh, and important thing, the score sheet is back. You can always use the chapters down below, but I'll be giving my final scores on the bike compared to many other bikes that I've ridden. Let's get into category number 1. Let's chat about the handling of the bike first, and it's actually one of the qualities that I've been loving the most on the Pinarello here. The action to turn, it's very light. It's not delicate, it's not sensitive, but it's a very light action, and it's very precise. You just don't have to think about where you're going. A lot of people hate it when I say stuff like this, but for me, a good test of a good handling bike is, am I thinking about the inputs and the outputs that I'm getting? And the answer is no on this. It's just very intuitive and you'll pick it up right away. It's how I imagine a Ferrari drives. It's very light steering, but very precise. Effectively, my point is that there's no learning curve to get the handling of this bike. Even if you're a beginner just getting into road bikes, I think you'll be comfortable descending fast on this thing. Another thing that I think contributes nicely to a decent handling frame is good feedback through the frame. And I do feel like I'm getting it with this. I'm very sensitive to what the road surface is like underneath me. Is it smooth? Is it grippy? Is it rougher? Is it slippier? I feel like I can feel that. Well, can I actually? Might be placebo, but I've got that sensation. I'm going to talk more about the frame and the feedback a little bit later in the comfort as well, because, well, I think it does have a role to play in the comfort, the feedback of the frame. Because that handling is so light, I find when you're transitioning from one turn to the other, if you've got like a left and then a quick right, it's so easy just to get the bike leant over to the other side. It just turns itself very quickly, and you're back in position for the next turn, meaning you can hold a better line through both turns if they're both tight and twisty. No hands when riding. Can you, eat stuff easily and things like that? And the answer is generally yes, if you're over speeds of about 25 k's an hour on this bike. If you are below 25 k's an hour, because of that very light handling, I find it's a little bit twitchy and it's a little bit harder to ride with no hands. I'm at the end of the ride, which means it's a great time to talk about the comfort levels of this bike. When I first jumped on it, I was a little bit worried because I felt like I could feel a lot of the bumps coming through the frame. Getting towards the end of the ride, it's kind of strange. So essentially those bumps and stuff, they're just very good feedback on the road surface. I said in the handling earlier that you get a lot of feedback through the frame as to what the road feels like underneath you. And when it comes to the comfort, you'd think actually that makes it really uncomfortable, but it doesn't. The shock of any like big and hard bumps and stuff, they don't go through the frame, they don't jam into you. The frame just kind of lets you know it's there. It's like those extra hard bumps and vibrations, they're just dampened down to like 30% of what they are. So even after spending 4.5 hours on the bike today, it didn't impact me that much, the aggressiveness of the frame. And I am in Mallorca, a lot of the roads are very smooth, but I did deliberately try and find some of the harsher, rougher bits around here on the island and go over some of those bumps to try and feel what the frame was actually like. So yeah, high levels of feedback without punishing you. I'm on the front of the fork there, it's called the Onda fork, O-N-D-A. Kind of a rubbish name, feels like there needs to be a letter in front of that, but besides the point, they say it is there to try and absorb as much vibration and reduce the impact of the rough roads, and I think it does work. This bike, the frame, it doesn't soak up the road. I'm on a 28mm GP5000 here, my kind of testing tyre that I always try and ride on. It does work well and I don't feel beaten up at the end of the ride. Does the bike feel fast? Flats and rolling? Well, the answer is kinda, this might actually be one of the weaknesses of this bike. It doesn't feel like an aero demon, you know? So what I'm looking for on the flats and the rolling is, first of all, do I feel like I'm riding a time trial bike? Yeah, no, it's pretty close, but it's not like a Canyon Aero or the previous generation Trek Madone. There were rocket ships along the flats. This is just really, really fast. So it's going to score highly, but not at the top. Secondly, on the flats and the rolling sections, when I'm cresting those hills, I just feel like I'm losing a little bit of momentum, and it's a little bit harder to pump back up to speed. On the Factor Ostro, if I lost some speed, I can pump it back up straight away. I feel like I can just gain that speed. Woo, rough road. I could just pull myself back up to speed whenever I wanted to. This, I feel like I have to work a little bit harder just to get myself back up to the 40k an hour mark. You know, it's not the lightest frame in the world, but I will say it does actually do a very good job of making the bike feel like it's light underneath your body. Every action, every input you do kind of does feel like a climbing bike in a positive way. It's just very, very responsive to all of your inputs. Some bikes almost have a bit of a dead feeling about them, but no, this bike does really well at making the bike feel like it's a light bike. Let's have a chat about the climbing, and well, this bike climbs very, very well. I mean, very easily lets you settle into your rhythm, feels sprightly underneath you, and you can just hold a specific pace for the whole climb. It just feels nice. I mean, to be honest, it rides like every other bike uphill when you're in the saddle. When you're out the saddle, however, very easy. As I said, the bike feels light underneath you, comfortable to ride, and I feel like I can spend a lot of time out the saddle, which I personally like to do. And when I really want to, I can give it some beans. It's quite tough to pick it up on camera here, but the two sides are different. I'll overlay some B-roll if you can't see it here, but effectively they've changed the right-hand side shape of that rear triangle because they want the right-hand side to be a little bit stiffer because that's where the power is going through. Does this actually work? I don't know, maybe it's a placebo, or maybe every other bike brand does this, they just don't advertise it like Pinarello do. But it probably does have a little bit of a role in making the bike feel more sprightly when you're climbing and when you're sprinting. Generally, as a rule, if the bike is really nice and fun out the saddle to ride, it's usually really damn good for sprinting. And it's exactly the same with this bike. It just has that really sharp, snappy, energetic feeling. And every pedal stroke you put down, it has that propulsive sensation where it just feels like 100% of that energy that you're putting into the pedals is making its way to the rear tire. And that's even with these wheels on. These aren't the best wheels in the world. If you had something even lighter and even deeper, they would feel even more energetic. So I feel like the frame, good for sprinting. Whilst it's very sharp and energetic, it is still easy to hold a straight line when you're whamming the power down of this bike. I wouldn't say it feels as direct as something like a Trek Madone. That feels like you're locked onto a path and it's solid and you can just wham the power out. But it's still a very, very good bike to sprint on. Let's chat about how this bike handles the side winds, and you know what, it's doing pretty damn good. Obviously, there's a few things that we need to take into account here. First of all is rim depth. These are only 40mm deep, so they're not exactly the deepest wheels in the world. Tire to wheel interaction also makes a big impact on side winds. And finally, I weigh 90 kilos at the moment. I'm back in the gym, I'm swimming a lot, and just being that heavy has less impact on the side winds. But for me, as a whole, there's been no sharp tugs, there's been no hard pulls, there's been no instability from the wind. You can feel it coming from the side, but it doesn't push you off your line or anything like that. So it's gonna get a good score for me on the side winds. Let's have a quick chat about the shop window factor. If you don't know what that is for me, it's when you're riding past the shop windows, do you look at yourself on it because you think you're cool? Which for me is important on a bike because you want to feel like you love your bike. And well, this one's very decisive. Some people do not like the wibbly wobbly wavy shapes on this frame. Me, for one, I think it looks different. I think it looks futuristic and I think it looks really cool. It's going to be a top scoring one for me, this one. I think Pinarello does have that kind of wow factor, that sexiness factor to it. And a lot of desirability. It's just a very cool, unique looking frame. Top scores. As for the fun factor, do you have fun on this bike? And well, that's an easy yes. I mean, it's like a puppy. You know, you throw it a ball, it comes sprinting back. It's like, again. It's like that when you're sprinting on it, you know? You give it a sprint, it's like, more, again, do it again. And well, I think if you buy this bike, you're gonna have fun on it. I do have some things to say about the price, and mainly you get a lot of frame for the money. Like, it's an excellent frame. It's just always let down by the wheel sets that it comes with. If we look at the F7 Ultegra spec bike here, see that it comes in at £7,000 retail price, and you're just not getting a good wheel set for that, in my opinion. I'm sure the wheels are robust enough, but they're just not very light. And then finally, even for the top end model that we look at here, the Dogma F series, 13,000 quid. And you get the DT Swiss Arc 1100s. I mean, DT Swiss, they make good wheels and great hubs, and they're robust, they last a long time, and you can rely on them, but they're way too narrow for 2025. And finally, they're too heavy for 2025. There's way too much competition going on nowadays for these wheels to be competitive, and you're paying a lot of money for not a good wheel set, and it just effectively brings down the quality of the overall package that you're getting. If you're gonna have an amazing frame, you need an amazing wheel set to go with it. For those interested in toe overlap, for me, I've got small, like size 8.5 feet, but no toe overlap. When you're trying to get aero on this frame, it's a very long frame, and it's actually got a 120 stem in it as well, which is normally ideal for me. But I feel like it's made extra long than it needs to be by the setback of the seat post here. It's very, very far set back, and I've measured it from the center of the seat post. It's 30 mil back to the center here, so it goes back a long way, and it kind of makes it feel almost too long, the top tube, for that specific reason. Ideally, I would have less setback and be over the top of the gear more, and then I like the length on the frame. So the seat back just doesn't make it as comfortable to sit in a really deep aerodynamic position. Let's get onto that final score sheet. So as you can see here, with price included, it kind of comes middle of the pack. Once again, it's really let down by those wheel sets. You have to buy another wheel set if you want this bike to be unbelievable, which really annoyed me. So it's getting a really low cost to value 3 there. And money is important to a lot of us. Not all of us have infinite money, but if money is not an issue for you, I need your help for this bit. One more quick thing before we move on. I want to know from those of you that have bought a Pinarello, can you change things such as the seat post setback and the crank length and stem length and things like that? Because that actually might bring up the value for money a little bit if you can change those certain things. The setback is definitely too far for me and my riding style personally, but I can't see anything on the website specifically to say that it does. And I put it excluding the price. Well, it comes in top 4 there because it just generally has some very high scores across the board. As an overall package, it's just an excellent bike, and this is where it comes in my overall rankings. Really, it just does a lot of things very well. Well, how do I conclude this thing? I'm safe to say I've had a very good time on it. It's one of the best handling bikes I've ever ridden by a long, long way. It's like a silk dress flowing in the wind. It's light, it's airy, it's elegant, and it just flows. That's the word I'd use to describe the handling of this bike. So nimble, so easy to flick from side to side. I mean, it really is an Italian beauty, this bicycle. One that I've really enjoyed the frame of. Comfort is good enough. It's still a fairly harsh, racy ride, but it doesn't have any big shocks coming through it. And well, it feels as fast as most modern bikes do. Doesn't feel like the top end elite stuff, but it still goes very quick. I know I've already had a little bit of a moan about the wheels, but honestly, if you had a really good wheel set already, or you had the money to purchase an excellent wheel set, wow, this bike would just be amazing. It would really rank in the top sections of my score sheet for sure. Even trying to read through the worst wheels, man, I still feel like this is an excellent frame, and it's a lot of money, but I can recommend buying it. I've loved it. I've been Jason. This has been Cycling Unboxed. See you in another video.